If those are the three sides. Now, again, when it comes to the 30, 60, 90 triangle, guys, when it comes to the 30, 60, 90 triangle, remember that the key is knowing what the short leg is. Because you always have the short leg, and whatever this side is always the short leg times the square root of 3, and this is 2 times the short leg. Now, when we set it up, we just called that short leg Y instead of SL for short leg, but it means the same thing. Yes?
Are you able to clear this at just 7 halves?
No, it's just 7 halves. It's just sometimes the number isn't a nice whole number. Sometimes you're just stuck with a fraction. So x here is going to be 2 times 7 halves, which we have to simplify, but that's easy. 7. And this side is going to be 7 halves times the square root of 3, which is 7 root 3 over 2. Or if you want to say 7 halves times the square root of 3, it's fine, because it doesn't reduce. And that's all there is to it. It's knowing that pattern that's the critical skill here. You have to know the pattern. And once you know the pattern, it's very simple to set it up. Now, sometimes calculating things can be a little complicated because you got the square roots involved. But it should always be easy to find in the 30, 60, 90 the short leg. That should never be too difficult to find. So if I give you something like, let's look at, say, sorry, here it is. $18. $18 was kind of tough because the numbers were a little bit rough. Let's rotate it around. It's rotated that way, and I've got 9 root 15 over 5. And we have the other two sides. We have to find x and y. But it's fine because 9 root 15 over 5 is the short leg, which I'm just going to call n, times the square root of 3 side. And if I can find out what n is, that'll be the short leg, and I just double that to find the hypotenuse. Now, that is a little bit of work to simplify. Not as much as you might think, but it is a little bit of work. We have to divide both sides by the square root of 3, which is putting a square root of 3 in the denominator over here. Same thing. Cancels over here, so n is 9 root 15 over 5 root 3. We can then reduce. 9 over 5 doesn't reduce, but root 15 over root 3 does. That's root 5 over 1. So it's 9 root 5 over 5. And that's this side. And so x here is going to be double that. 2 times 9 is 18 root 5 over 5. And those are the lengths. Now, that's not as pretty as 7 and even 7 halves root 3. It's a little bit uglier numbers, but it still works out the same way. And it's still a matter of setting up that triangle and getting it all taken care of like that. So, it's just a matter of knowing the reference triangle and trying to find the length of that short leg. It all is based off of that. And sometimes the numbers are easy and sometimes the numbers are not. But I have some people who just get all messed up with things when we start throwing things in like 30, 60, 90 triangle, and this side is 2 root 3. People get all messed up because they say, well, that's somebody. What do you mean there's a square root of 3 here? The square root of 3 has to be over here. And the square root of 3 can show up anywhere. This is the short leg. This side is going to be the short leg times the square root of 3. This is going to be 2 times the short leg. And then we just simplify those. 2 times 2 root 3 is 4 root 3. 2 times root 3 times root 3, the root 3 times root 3 is just 3. So that's 6. So just take our short leg times the square root of 3. And yeah, the short leg is in terms of the square root of 3, which means this one side is no longer in the terms of the square root of 3. Oh well. It's just how the numbers fall. The pattern still functions. So don't let it throw you off. Know your pattern. Short leg, long leg is short leg times the square root of 3. Hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg. That's all you have to know. But you do, and at that end, being able to work with radicals. That's going to be important. Anything else? Let's review what's going to be on tomorrow's quiz then. Because tomorrow is G2. There are some people who still need to take G1. I just graded 3 more G1s last hour that people took in the last couple days, so those should be going in the Skyward later this morning or sometime early this afternoon. Not too bad. But here we go. First part of this quiz is going to be using the geometric means, or setting up these equations. Now remember, there are 2 different ways we can set this up. Most of you are setting this up with similar triangles. These are not 30, 60, 90 triangles. One of the most common mistakes I see on this quiz is people try to do these as try to do that as a 30, 60, 90. And it's not. We aren't told it's a 30, 60, 90. Don't assume that it is. It is a right triangle. That's all we know. We don't know the measures of the other angles. So I can't say this is 5, this is 10, this is 5 root 3. That wouldn't work here. Those are not 30, 60, 90s unless we're told they are. So what do we learn to do here? We learn to set this up by setting up 3 triangles. The big outer triangle, the middle triangle, and the little triangle. Okay? And we look at short leg, long leg, hypotenuse in each of those. So in the big outer triangle, the short leg is n. The long leg is unknown. The hypotenuse is 20. In the middle triangle, the short leg we don't know. The long leg is 15. Hypotenuse we don't know. In the triangle on the right, the little triangle, the short leg is 5. The long leg we don't know. The hypotenuse is n. Which 2 am I going to use to set up my proportion? Yeah. The big and the little. And it's 20 compares to n, and n compares to 5. So we're going to cross multiply. So n is 10. In fact, this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. I didn't think it was, but it actually worked out that it is. But that's just coincidence in this case. Just the way the numbers worked out. Okay. The other way to set this up, if you'll recall, would be to use a geometric mean situation, whereby we'd say, okay, here's my common endpoint. N is the square root of 5 times the whole thing, 20. So n is the square root of 100. So n is 10. So that's another way of doing that, if you prefer using the other square root method. Either way. So with that done, you try this one. Get a piece of paper. I can do these all day in front of you on the board, but that's not you getting practice. If you got to ask a neighbor to help you, go ahead. Get this figured out, because you have to do it tomorrow on your own on the quiz, but for today it's just about figuring it out. Yep, that's right. Try drawing your triangles and make life easier. Try to draw them all lined up the same way, so you don't have your. It's hard to see here because you get your short leg here and your long leg here, but here you get your short leg here and your long leg here. Try to draw them so they're all set up the same, all triangles the same way. And then it'll be much easier to set up your. Yep. Actually, that's fine. It's just that you should square both sides. It's actually set up correctly. Okay? You just need to square both sides, so 64 equals 4n. And then you'd have it solved. So you set it up right, you just didn't. Yep. Yep. No. Let's see what it is here. Nope. You're not set up right. Yep. Because the n is under the square root. So in order to get out from under the square root, you got to get rid of the square root by squaring both sides. So 64 equals 4n. You wouldn't take this. You wouldn't square root because you take the square root if it was n squared. That's when you take the square root. But here n is under the square root, so you have to do the opposite. What? Okay. You're getting it. Oh, actually, you get it right. 4 over 8, but then you do 8 over n, not n over 8. You didn't set up consistently. You've got the numbers. You just flip that one ratio. Okay, most of you got this fine. And there are a couple ways of doing it, but again, what I'm seeing is some people are not drawing the triangles. You're trying to do this in your head. And folks, seriously, if you're not good at setting up the relationships of the square roots, which a couple people were, but most people are doing the triangle method, the proportion, but you're trying to do it without drawing the pictures. And that's just a mistake. You're going to make mistakes that way. When you draw your triangles, make sure you line them up the same way and exaggerate it so you can clearly see what's the short leg, what's the long leg. Don't keep them rotated around in different positions. Draw them in the same orientation. That way you won't mess up your proportion. And just focus. Short leg, long leg, hypotenuse. 4, 8, unknown. Middle triangle. Short leg, long leg, hypotenuse. 8n. Short leg, long leg, unknown. That's enough. I don't even need to do the large outer triangle. I get 8 over n is 4 over 8. So 4n is 64, so n is 16. And even at this point, you may have been able to see, wow, that's twice as much, so this better be twice as much too, proportional. Right? You may have noticed that. Or 4 over 8, gosh, this is twice as much as that, this better be twice as much as that if it's similar. Right? So several different ways to go after that particular one. The last way to do it was to use the geometric mean relationships, which again, this is the one that stands by itself. 8 is the square root of n times 4. Now n is under the radical, so the way we get it out from under the radical is to square both sides. square cancels the square root, so that's just 4n. And again, we divide by 4, and n is 16. So we get the same answer either way. But again, too many people as they're walking around looking at this, not drawing pictures, just trying to write this out in your head. Just trying to set up this proportion right here without drawing a single thing. Don't do it. You're going to make mistakes more times than not. Draw it carefully. That's why I'm demonstrating it that way, because that's the way to avoid the errors. Find the unknown length. 45, 45, 90 triangle. This is not the one we did last night. This is the one we did Friday night into Monday. Remember, this is the one where the legs have to be congruent. The hypotenuse is the length of the leg times the square root of 2. That's this one. That's this pattern. So if this leg is 7, how long is this leg going to have to be? 7, and n is going to be 7 root 2. Very simple in the 45, 45, 90 like that. Oh dear. Again, this is 3 root 2 over 4. This is going to be 3 root 2 over 4. Now it's getting a little bit more complicated. This is 3 root 2 over 4 times what? Root 2, which is just in the numerator because the denominator is going to be a 1, not root 2 over root 2. That would be 1. Now I have to simplify that, but I'm going to group those two first. Root 2 times root 2 is square root of 4, which is 2. So that's 3 times 2 over 4, or 6 over 4, which is 3 over 2. So not only do we have to get it written out, but we do have to simplify it. And that's how we do that. Oh yeah, now we're having good times. Other thing that's to be on there is the 30, 60, 90 triangle. And again, not too tough. 30, 60, 90 pattern is short leg times the square root of 3, and 2 times the short leg. This side is 6 root 3, that is the short leg times the square root of 3, so the short leg has to be 6, and the hypotenuse has to be 12. Okay? Easy one. A little more difficult one. The short leg is 3 root 2. Well, if I know a short leg, the hypotenuse is really easy. I just double that. 2 times 3 root 2. And remember, the 2 and the 3 multiply, give me 6 root 2. I not multiply 2 times the square root of 2. It's into the radical. This side is going to be the short leg times the square root of 3. And again, we'll just group those two. And it does not simplify. That's that third side. All right? But again, show your work. Don't try to do it all in your head. Doing it in your head, recipe for disaster. Let's try another one of these. You get your paper out still? Try this particular one. Again, not a 30, 60, 90 triangle or anything like that. Pretty sure this time. 2 times 25. 25 doesn't have an end point. They're at the same point. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. This one doesn't come out quite as nicely. Yep. You're getting there. Yep. No. No. How'd you come up with those numbers? I'm curious. I mean, I just know where the numbers came from on the paper, but I'm not sure how you got those into that formula. Yeah.
Did I do that right?
I don't think so, because the n is not the long leg here. The n is the hypotenuse of that small triangle. You've got an n in the wrong spot. You're getting your, you have to really make sure you're identifying short leg, long leg, hypotenuse. Yes, that's it. Yep. You're right, just gotta simplify that. Mm-hmm. Oh, where did R come from? Where's that a 2?
It's a 2.
What's 2 times 27?
Oh.
You set up correctly, you just not, you did multiplied wrong. Okay, good. You're supposed to be for registration last night.
Yeah, but I didn't know what the registration stuff was.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Okay. I see, because you're on my list.
Yeah.
And I didn't see you. I was sad. I cried a little bit. I'm better now, but... What are we doing? Sorry? Yep. Yep.
Second grade,
Hmm.
we had, like, you know how we all do a presentation for the
Okay. I got
videotape, like,
that 2 is the short side of this triangle, and then it's the long side of this triangle. Which triangle is this? Is this the middle triangle?
Yeah.
Okay, this would be the short side, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That would be the long leg, and there's no n anywhere. So you need the large outer triangle to figure this out.
you know how that happens at, like, every
Okay, this is n, short side is 2. Hypotenuse is the whole thing, 27.
I didn't do that.
And long. You need that. You need the third triangle. All right. And most of you did this fine. But again, the 2 triangles we need here are this small triangle. And again, I'm going to just redraw that here. I'm going to redraw right angles there, so I know where the right angle is. The short leg is 2. N is across from the right angle, so that's the hypotenuse, that's N. And then the large outer triangle is the second one. And large outer triangle, this is the short leg, N. The hypotenuse is across from the right angle, that's 27. And I don't know the long leg, but that's what we need. So N over 27 is 2 over N. So 54 equals N squared. So N is the square root of 54, which would be the square root of 9 times the square root of 6, which is 3 root 6. Which most of you actually reduced quite nicely once you got there. So again, setting them up, solving them. A lot of people still struggling with setting up the triangle. And again, we're talking about something as straightforward as what is the short side, what is the middle side, what is the longest side. So don't overthink this stuff. Shortest, middle, longest. That's a pretty easy concept that I think we could figure out. Let's try this one. Oh dear. I'll give you a hint by putting the reference triangle down next to it. This is short leg. Short leg times square root of 3. 2 times the short leg. Try to find the short leg here. Yep. No, not yet. Yep. Not yet. Yep. Not yet. Okay. Yeah. What are you doing? Maybe you should be working out your brain a little bit here. Can I do this by drawing out 3 triangles in this one? No, because not one of those altitude to a right triangle. This is a 30, 60, 90. Ooh, that, okay, yes. Yeah, that's right. All right, about half of you are getting this one, about half of you are not. Whoop. Make sure a little more than half got it, but there's still several people who are struggling with this one. Can we keep it under control, please? All right. So, again, with the pattern right next to it, we see that 8 is the short leg times the square root of 3. N being the short leg times the square root of 3. There's only one way of solving that equation, and that is to divide both sides by the square root of 3. And again, look at it as an equation. Don't look at this so much as in a just, okay, try to figure all this out in my head. Slow down, use your steps. If I have n times something, I have to divide to solve that, don't I? So n is 8 over the square root of 3, which then rationalizes. It's 8 root 3 over 3. Here's that side. There we go. That's how that one works. Not quite as easy when we get a whole number over there, but it's not that difficult. It's something we've been doing now for over a week, working with those radicals. Just simplify a simple square root, square root of 96. What perfect square is going to go into 96? You can just tell me. We can do this one together. Anyone tell me a perfect square goes into 96? What? 16 how many times? 6. Okay, because square root of 16 winds up being 6. I still get people who do that, and then they do 6 root 4 instead of 4 root 6. Be careful, it's a 16 that's coming out that becomes a 4. Outside the radical, I do not simplify that further. All right. That's what's going to be on your quiz tomorrow. And we have, much to your great surprise, I'm sure, a review sheet. Shocking, I know. So more practice on these problems. A little bit more practice. Answers are on the back, so you can check your work as you go. No.